evening, good vach, shavua tov, a good week to you, my holy sisters and brothers. Great to be learning with you on a Saturday night. Let's light up the darkness. Who's in the house on a Saturday night? Maybe a little too soon. Lucy in Minnesota, Karen in Northern California, Moishi in Brooklyn, Frank in San Pedro Heim in Florida, Lester in Florida, Elon in Silver Spring, Lynn in Canada. I wonder if Facebook changed its notifications again and take a few minutes for people to find us, but they will, I'm sure. Joe in the Inland Empire. Welcome, everybody. Quick housekeeping announcement. Tomorrow, Sunday, not a Jewish holiday, but we are going to do a special time, noon Pacific, the Friday schedule. We're going to do tomorrow, Sunday. Got a very dear friend, has something going on in his life, and I'm going to be there for him. We're going to watch the Super Bowl together. So tomorrow, instead of 6 p.m. Pacific, the class tomorrow on Sunday will be at noon Pacific. And we'll put that on the Facebook page as well, the announcement. Okay, our daf tonight is page 29 here in Tractate Menachot, the 30th volume of the Talmud, continuing our discussion of Mishna number 10 here in chapter 3. We've been talking about offerings and sacrificial procedures in the Holy Temple when it was standing in Jerusalem. It hasn't been in 2,000 years, but God willing, it will be again soon. And the idea that for certain matters are indispensable, so therefore, if any part of the mitzvah was missing, the whole mitzvah is going to be invalidated. One of the examples of that is the menorah, the golden menorah that stood first in the desert, in the wilderness, was there with the tabernacle. Eventually, Joshua, the children of Israel, into the Holy Land, and then it stood at Shiloh along with the tabernacle, where sacrifices were brought for about 4 centuries. Then David moved it to Jerusalem, and Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem. And then, as we'll see today, he added additional menorahs, additional golden menorahs. But about the menorah, if any of the arms were missing of the 7-branched menorah that stood in the temple, that would invalidate the fulfillment of lighting the lamps of the menorah in the courtyard of the Holy Temple. We'll see some other matters that, if they're not done entirely correctly, would invalidate the mitzvah. We're picking this up near the bottom of page 28b. Shmuel says, in the name of a certain elder, the height of the menorah was 18 handbreadths. So this is a handbreadth. It's understood to be about 4 inches. So the golden menorah that stood in the temple was approximately 72 inches high, about 6 feet. It was 18 handbreadths. And the base and the flower, when we talk about the flower, we're talking about the shape, right? As we learned yesterday, the whole golden menorah was beaten out of a solid block of gold, and the craftsman who forged it shaped flowers and knobs and goblets into it. So the height of the menorah was 18 handbreadths. The base and the flower that was upon the base were a height of 3 handbreadths, and 2 handbreadths above that were bare, no decoration, just gold. And there was above that 1 handbreadth, which had a goblet, a knob, and a flower on it. And 2 handbreadths above that were bare, and there was above that 1 handbreadth that had a knob. And 2 branches emerge from the knob, one toward this direction and one toward that, and they extend and rise up to the full height of the menorah. And 1 handbreadth above that was bare, and there was another, and above that there was another handbreadth that had a knob, and 2 and 2 branches rose from that. Right, so you can see when you're talking about these goblets in that illustration of the Rambam, Rabbi Moses ben Maimon, or Maimonides, his illustration that's in his handwriting and hand. And you see these kinds of knobs, and then not a knob, and then the knob from which the branches emerge. This is not meant to be an exact rendition. He was not an artist. He had many skills. That's not what he was trying to do here. But this idea of the knobs, goblets, and flowers, and that the branches would emerge from them. Where was I? Right. Okay. And so there remained 3 handbreadths in which there were 3 goblets and a knob and a flower. And the goblets of the menorah, to what are they similar? They were like Alexandrian goblets, which are long and narrow. And the knobs, to what are they similar? They were like the shape of the apples of the Charasites. And the flowers, to what are they similar? They were like the ornaments that are etched in columns. And there are found to be a total of 22 goblets, 11 knobs, and 9 flowers on the candelabrum, or on the menorah. And so the editors of the Koran, directed by Rav Steinsaltz, include this little figure here, right, of an ionic column in architecture. The point being that if you could see more closely between the curls on either end at the top of that column, there are additional architectural flourishes, right? And that's the idea that what we're talking about here, these goblets and knobs and flowers, right? It's kind of like architectural, sculptural details in the menorah from which the branches would emerge, along the branches, and then at the top, under the lamps, etc. And the original design for all this was not just from words, as we'll read tonight, not just from words in the Torah, but Moses was shown, right, in a vision by God, what this menorah should look like, and he was able to transmit that vision and that understanding of how it should be fabricated to the craftsman who made it, who I believe was Betzalel, named in the Torah. Now, Rebbe, i.e. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, interprets the verse. That was yesterday. 11 knobs and flowers are on the menorah. Now, with regard to the goblets, the absence of each prevents fulfillment of the mitzvah with the others. With regard to the knobs, the absence of each prevents fulfillment of the mitzvah with the others. And with regard to these flowers, right, these sculptural flourishes in the menorah, if any of them were missing, each prevents fulfillment of the mitzvah with the others. In other words, if any of these details were missing from the menorah is not valid. With regard to the goblets, the knobs, and flowers, the absence of each prevents fulfillment of the mitzvah with the others. The mitzvah being to light the menorah each day in the holy temple. Now, the Gemara asks, granted, there were 22 goblets on the menorah, as it is written, and in the menorah, 4 goblets made like almond blossoms. That's Exodus 25:34. And it is written, 3 goblets made like almond blossoms in one branch, a knob and a flower, and 3 goblets made like almond blossoms in the other branch, a knob and a flower. So for the 6 branches going out of the menorah in Exodus 25:33. Therefore, the menorah contains 4 goblets of its main shaft and the 18 of the 6 branches, and this equals 22 goblets. And concerning the knobs as well, it is clear how the number 11 was reached. The menorah contains the 2 knobs of its main shaft, and the verse states its knobs, with the plural knobs indicating that there were 2, and the 6 of the 6 branches, as it is written, in one branch a knob and a flower. In addition to these 8 knobs, the verse states, and a knob under the 2 branches of one piece with it, and a knob under 2 branches of one piece with it, and a knob under 2 branches of one piece with it, and this equals 11 knobs, right? So kind of the 11 major places, basically where there would be a joint if the menorah was assembled in pieces. But as we read yesterday, a golden menorah had to be beaten out of a block of pure gold. But these knobs are essentially the connection points, and having them be a little bit bigger would strengthen the connection points of the golden menorah. Remember that gold is a very soft metal compared to other stiffer metals. Now, we're on page 29a at the top. or near the top. But from where do we derive that the menorah contained 9 flowers? So according to the verse, there are 2 flowers of its main shaft, as it is written, and its flowers, and the 6 of the 6 branches, as it is written, in one branch, a knob and a flower, meaning that there are 8, not 9, flowers on the menorah. So Rav Shalman said in response, it is written, it was a beaten work from the base to the flower in Numbers 8:4, which teaches that there was an additional 9th flower near the base of the menorah. Rav says the height of the menorah is 9 handbreadths. 9 handbreadths, that's a lot shorter than the 18 we read above. Rav Shimi Bar Chia raised an objection to the statement of Rav we learned in a Mishna, tractate Tamid 30b. There was a stone before the menorah, and it had 3 steps upon which the priest would stand and prepare the lamps for kindling. If the menorah was only 9 handbreadths high, why would it be necessary for the priest to stand on an elevated surface to reach the lamps? 9 handbreadths is like waist high. And Rav said to him, Shimi, is it you who is asking me such a question? When I said that the height of the menorah is 9 handbreadths, I was referring not to the total height, which is 18 handbreadths. Rather, I meant that the menorah is 9 handbreadths from the point at which the branches extend from the main shaft and above. Weiter, onward. It is written, and the flowers and the lamps and the tongs of gold, and that perfect gold, michlot zahav. Okay, so this perfect gold, what is that going to mean? We read that in 2 Chronicles 4:21. So the Gemara asks, what is meant by michlot zahav? Perfect gold. Rav Ami says it is a reference to the fact that the menorah and its vessels exhausted, kilatu, all of Solomon's pure gold, his sagur zahav, which was used in its fashioning in such great quantities. As Rav Yehuda says, that Rav says, Solomon, right, I'm talking about King Solomon, made 10 menorahs, and for each and every one he brought 1,000 talents of gold, and they placed the gold in the furnace to refine it 1,000 times, until they reduced the gold to 1 talent for each menorah, as it is stated, of a talent of, remember, a talent is a weight, of pure gold shall it be made, in Exodus 25:39. So Solomon insisted that the gold be hyper refined, pure gold. And so they were able to remove any kind of impurity, and of course that would reduce the weight from the original gold that was brought, which was not so pure. And the Gemara asks, and remember we just read that there were 10 menorahs. 10 menorahs? Why? Right? There was the mitzvah was to light 1 menorah. But Solomon was such a wealthy king, in order for him to beautify the mitzvah, he added these additional menorahs that stood in the sanctuary of the temple. Now the Gemara asks, is that so, that all of Solomon's gold was exhausted for the fashioning of the menorah and its vessels? But isn't it written, and all of King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. Silver was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon. 2 Chronicles 9:20. And the Gemara answers, we are saying that Solomon's pure gold was exhausted for the fashioning of the menorah, but not all his gold. Right? He used the very finest of his gold to make the menorahs in the Holy Temple. The Gemara asks, and would refining the gold reduce it to this extent, that 1,000 talents of gold would be reduced to 1 talent? But isn't it taught in Baraisa that Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, says an incident occurred where the weight of the menorah of the temple was found to be greater than the weight of the menorah of Moses by 1 kordikini gold dinar. And they placed it in the furnace 80 times until the weight of the menorah stood at precisely 1 talent. So evidently putting the menorah into a furnace reduces its weight by very little. The Gemara answers, yeah, once it is standing, i.e., since the gold was already refined to such a degree in the time of Solomon, later when it was refined 80 times, it was reduced by the weight of only 1 dinar. Right? It's not like, all these times of refining it are removing so much non-gold metal from it. every time, as it gets purer and purer, it gets more and more difficult to remove the last bits of non-gold substance in that pure gold menorah. Next topic, weiter. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani says that Rabbi Yonasan says, what is the meaning of that which is written upon the pure menorah in Leviticus 24:4? It teaches that the procedure for fashioning it, for making it, right, descended, i.e., it was shown to Moses from the place of purity, i.e., by God, who showed Moses a model of the menorah. And the Gemara asks, if that is so, is that to say that the phrase upon the pure table in Leviticus 24:6, that's the table, I think, with the showbread, the lechem panim, also teaches that the procedure for fashioning it was shown to Moses from the place of purity? Rather, the expression the pure table teaches by inference that it is susceptible to becoming tamei. It can become ritually impure if it comes into contact with an impure substance, like a dead body or a sheretz, a dead creeping thing. Here too, that means it's a vessel that can become impure, right? The menorah and the table of the showbreads was like any vessel that could become tamei if it was exposed to tuma, ritual impurity. Here too, the expression the pure menorah teaches by inference that it is susceptible to becoming tamei. But the Gemara rejects this idea. Granted, the inference drawn there with regard to the table is in accordance with that with which Reish Lakish says. As Reish Lakish says, what is the meaning of that which is written upon the pure table in Leviticus 24:6? The expression pure table teaches by inference that it is susceptible to becoming tamei. But why? Isn't the table a wooden vessel designed to rest in a fixed place? And any wooden vessel that is designated to rest in a fixed place, i.e. furniture, is not susceptible to becoming tamei. So rather, this teaches that the table was not always left in a fixed place. The priest would lift the table with its showbreads on it to display the showbread to the pilgrims who are standing in the temple courtyard. And a priest would say to them, "See your affection before the omnipresent." And for this reason, the table is susceptible to becoming ritually impure, right? Like a wooden spoon can become tamei, a wooden table can't. But the table of the showbreads was more like a spoon in the sense that it was a vessel designed to have a use that moved it around, right? Not just to hold the showbreads, but even to move that table and show the showbreads to pilgrims who were visiting the Holy Temple. And parenthetically, the Gemara asks, what is meant by see your affection before God? It is in accordance with that which Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says. As Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, a great miracle was performed with the showbread. Its condition at the time of its removal from the table, after having been left there for a week, was like its condition at the time of its arrangement on the table, as it is stated, to place hot bread on the day when it was taken away, indicating that it was as hot on the day of its removal as it was on the day when it was placed on the table. This was one of the 10 ever-present miracles of the first temple. The Gemara resumes stating its objection, that here with regard to the menorah, there is no reason to explain that the expression, the pure menorah, teaches by inference that it is susceptible to becoming tamei, because that's obvious. It doesn't need to be taught. The menorahs are metal vessels, and metal vessels are susceptible to becoming tamei, whether or not they remain in fixed location. So rather, it must be that the expression, the pure menorah, teaches that the procedure for fashioning it descended, i.e., it was shown to Moses from the place of purity. Next topic, weiter, right? Weiter means onward. It is taught in a Baraisa, Rabbi Yosei, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, says, an ark of fire and a table of fire and a menorah of fire descended from the heavens, and Moses saw their form and fashioned the vessels for the Mishkan, for the tabernacle, in their likeness. As it is stated after the command to fashion these items, and see that you make them after their pattern, which is being shown to you in the mount. Exodus 25:40. right? So this idea that Moses, just from hearing the words, would not have known what the menorah, as well as the Ark of the Covenant and the table, were supposed to look like. What was their design? So he was shown it, of fire. That, that in this sense, the fire, it could mean fire, but it also could just mean, kind of light, like beautiful vision made of light, almost like reflected through a prism, beautiful, crystalline, full of, light, fiery light, is how in the vision that Moses was shown what these things should look like. And then he was able to transmit that form, I don't know if teach it in words or show it somehow to Bezalel, the craftsman who actually fashioned these vessels, right? But Moses was shown by God what they should look like. And the Gemara asks, if that is so, is that to say that the verse, and you shall set up the tabernacle according to its fashion, which has been shown to you in the mount, also indicates that God showed Moses a tabernacle of fire, right? The entire Mishkan. Remember that the original, we had the Holy Temple, once that was built in Jerusalem. In the wilderness, the original was the tabernacle, a portable structure that was made of, all these like columns and posts and wood and sockets and covered by tachash skins and wool and fibers and sewn tapestries, etc. A kind of a large, incredibly beautiful tent where the worship would happen. So was he shown the form of that also in a fiery vision? And the Gemara answers, here with regard to the Mishkan, it is written according to its fashion, meaning that it should be built according to the instructions given to Moses, whereas there, with regard to the ark, the table, and the menorah, it is written after their pattern, indicating that an actual model of the items was shown to Moses. Apropos this discussion, the Gemara relates that Rabbi Chiya bar Abba says, that Rabbi Yochanan says, the angel Gabriel was girded with a type of wide belt, pisakia, in the manner of artisans who tie up their clothes to prevent their clothes from hindering them in their work, like girding up their loins. And he showed the precise way to fashion the menorah to Moses, as it is written, and this is the work of the menorah. And the term this indicates that an exact replica was shown to him. The school of Rabbi Yishmael taught 3 matters were difficult for Moses to comprehend precisely until the Holy One, blessed be he, showed them to him with his finger, God's finger. And these are the 3 matters: the form of the menorah, and the exact size of the new moon to understand when the new Hebrew months would begin, and the impure creeping animals, the sheretzim, these small animals that if once they're dead, if you come into contact with them or if they fall into a vessel, so in certain rules, all kinds of rules of tumah. This is about tumah, ritual impurity. But not every small animal, when it's dead, imparts tumah. Only certain ones, known as in singular sheretz or plural sheretzim. Now the menorah was shown to him as it is written, and this is the work of the menorah. The new moon was shown to him as it is written, this month shall be for you the beginning of months. And the sheretzim were shown to him as it is written, and these are they which are unclean for you among the swarming things. And there are those who say that God also showed Moses the laws of slaughtering, right, slaughtering kosher animals, as it is stated, now this is that which you shall sacrifice upon the altar, and slaughtering is the first ritual of sacrifice. How do you begin a sacrifice? By slaughtering the animal. Then you collect the blood, convey it to the altar, sprinkle it there, etc. Now the Mishnah teaches with regard to the 2 passages that are in the mezuzah. We're going back to our Mishnah 10 here in chapter 3, and going back to the discussion of which aspects of a mitzvah, if they're missing, will render the entire mitzvah unfit, not valid. With regard to the 2 passages that are in the mezuzah, right? The mezuzah is, remember, the scroll with the first 2 paragraphs of the Shema that are inside a covering, right? So when you see a mezuzah on a doorpost of a Jewish home, we call that a mezuzah, but the mezuzah is the scroll inside. The decorative covering outside is the decorative covering. Now, with regard to the 2 passages that are in the mezuzah, the absence of each prevents fulfillment of the mitzvah with the others. And furthermore, the absence of even one letter in those passages written on the mezuzah prevents fulfillment of the mitzvah with the rest of them. And the Gemara asks, isn't it obvious that the absence of even one letter prevents fulfillment of the mitzvah? Since it is written, Deuteronomy 6:9, and you shall write them, which teaches that the writing must be complete. Right? Uchtavtam, that's the way the word is in that paragraph. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house. Uchtavtam. And then in Hebrew, you get ketav and tam, that the writing must be complete. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says it was necessary to state that only to teach that even the absence of the thorn, i.e. the small stroke of the letter Yud, prevents fulfillment of the mitzvah. In other words, not only do all the letters have to be there, but they all have to be properly formed. The letters have to be properly formed, right? So there you have a Yud. If that Yud is not properly formed, if it's missing a little bit on top or below or the extension down below, any of that would render it an improper mezuzah, an unfit, and therefore not protecting the Jewish home and its residents, not fulfilling the mitzvah of mezuzah. Where was I? Yeah, that even the absence of the thorn, i.e. the small stroke of the letter Yud, prevents fulfillment of the mitzvah. So the Gemara asks, but isn't this also obvious since the letter is not formed properly? Rather, it is necessary according to another statement that Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, as Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, any letter that is not encircled with blank parchment on all four of its sides, i.e., the letters can't be touching each other, right? So two Hebrew letters come in a row. There has to be space between them. Not only that, but it can't be touching the line above or the line below. Every Hebrew letter in a mezuzah or in a Torah scroll, for that matter, has to have blank space around it. It is not touching the letter after it, before it, above it, or below it. And if it is, if they are touching anything that's adjacent, the scroll is unfit. Ashiyan bar Nadbach says in the name of Rav Yehuda, if the inner part of the letter Hey was perforated, it is fit. But if the perforation was in the leg of the letter Hey, it is unfit. Rabbi Zayris says this matter was explained to me by Rav Huna. And Rabbi Yaakov says this matter was explained to me by Rav Yehuda. If the inner part of the letter Hey was perforated, it is fit. In a case where the perforation was in the leg of the letter Hey, then if there remained in the leg that was attached to the roof of the letter the equivalent of the measure of a small letter, i.e. the letter Yud, then it is fit, but if not, it is unfit. In other words, how deformed or how, rubbed away can a letter be before it is rendered unfit? Not much, right? I mean, a little bit can be missing if the ink wears off or something, but not much, right? Not much. Now the Gemara relates, Agra, the father-in-law of Rabbi Abba, now we're on page 29b, had the leg of the letter Hey in the term the nation, Ha'am, written in his tefillin, severed by a perforation. He came before his son-in-law Rabbi Abba to clarify the law. And Rabbi Abba said to him, if there remains in that leg that is attached to the roof the equivalent of the measure of a small letter, i.e. the letter Yud, it is fit. But if not, it is unfit. Right? So just to clarify a little bit, over here, right, that's the letter Hey. So you can see that the letter Hey, it has, one vertical leg that is attached to the roof, so to speak, and the other one is not attached to the roof. We're going to go into that form a little bit more in a moment. But, if the vertical letter that's attached to the roof becomes detached from the roof, it's pretty much going to be unfit. It's going to be unfit. But if the one that is attached to the roof, if the bottom end of it, some of it gets rubbed away, it can still be fit as long as it's the length of a Yud at least. Now, the Gemara resumes stating the objection that it was bringing, but here, with regard to the menorah, there is no It is unfit. Now the Gemara relates Rami bar Tamre, who was the father-in-law of Rami bar Dikule, had the leg of the letter Vav in the term, and the Lord slew Vayaharog, all the firstborn in Exodus 13:15, written in his tefillin, severed by a perforation. He came before Rabbi Zera to clarify the law, and Rabbi Zera said to him, "Go bring a child who is neither wise nor stupid, but of average intelligence, and ask him if he can read that word." Right? If the word is still legible, then the vav has not been severed in such a way that it renders the word unreadable. But if he can read it, then it's okay. Then it is fit. As despite the perforation, the letter is still seen as a vav. But if not, then it is as though the term will be slain, yehareg. In other words, a vav, which is basically a vertical line with just a little bit of a top on it. If it becomes separated in the middle, and that bottom half is a little bit, worn, and somebody thinks that this is a yud, if a child who's neither wise nor stupid thinks that that's a yud rather than a vav, then the scroll has been rendered not fit. Okay, weiter. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says when Moses ascended on high, he found the Holy One. This is a very, very famous passage in the Talmud. Beautiful story. Goes right to the question that is always asked of people of faith by skeptics, but also asked by people of faith. God is good. God knows everything. God is all-powerful. Why does God permit evil to happen in the world? Why does God permit terrible evil, terrible injustice, terrible, terrible things to happen in the world? The basic answer is we don't know, right? We trust God, that everything that happens is for the good, and beyond that, explanations can be offered, but we don't offer them to a person who's suffering, whether from disease or, been a victim of evil, etc. At the moment of his evil, we just try to comfort that person and be with that person. We don't try to explain theology to such a person. But generally speaking, we just trust God. And what helps me, with that question and in really tough moments in life is, we are souls. We have bodies. The body is temporary. The soul is eternal. So no matter how bad it gets in this world, I think our lives in this world are going to basically seem like a dream when we get to that upper world, the world of souls. And who knows what lessons are best learned in this world. Maybe the people who suffer the most learn the most. I don't know. I can't explain that. None of us can explain that with certainty. But the people who think like, oh, they're so clever, they've invented this question. I mean, this question has been asked since the beginning of time and certainly since the beginning of Judaism. Now, here is a fascinating story about our sages, and it doesn't only ask that question, it asks some other questions as well. So, Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, now that we've been talking about letters and how letters are formed, and remember that our sages also teach that the entire world is formed of the Hebrew letters, that God spoke the world into being, and that the fundamental building block is a spiritual form of the letters that comprise the Torah. A little bit like that movie, The Matrix, right? But really, it's made of the letters. So the form of the Hebrew letters teach tremendous spiritual lessons. There's all kinds of books written about spiritual lessons that you can learn from the letters, the forms of the letters themselves. Okay, Rav Yehuda says, that Rav says, when Moses ascended on high, right, when Moses was receiving the Torah and he went up and he was able to be himself, and he'll return to his body, so to speak, and give the law to the Jewish people, but he spent some time up in heaven. We covered some beautiful stories about when Moses went up to get the Torah and the angels challenged God, said, how could you give this human the Torah? And Moses, was told to answer, and he was scared, and God said, hold on to the throne, be strong and answer them. And one of the things he said is, well, you're angels, do you need laws in order to do the right thing? Do you slip and fall? Do you need atonement and teshuvah? Like we need a whole day of it on Yom Kippur? Do you need that? Angels don't need that. The Torah is for the humans. Okay, here's something else that went on up there. Moses ascended on high, and he found the Holy One, blessed be he, sitting and tying crowns on the letters of the Torah. Crowns are like, see those letters there, the shin, the ayin, the tes, the nun, the zayin, the gimel, and the that's a tzadi, that they have above them. I know it's hard to see, but they have these little three-pointed crowns above those letters. So what are those crowns all about? I'm sorry it was so blurry. But there's these three little crowns above, some of the Hebrew letters. Above 7 of the letters, when they're written in the Torah scroll, they have these crowns on them. So and the original form of those crowns comes from heaven, comes from God, right? So Moses ascended on high. He found the Holy One, blessed be he, sitting and tying crowns on the letters of the Torah. And Moses said before God, Master of the universe, who is preventing you from giving the Torah without these additions? Right? You don't need those crowns on the letters in order to understand what the letters which form words, what the words of the Torah are saying. You don't need those crowns. So why are you delaying giving the Torah into the world, into the people? What is the purpose of these crowns? That's what Moses is asking. God said to him, there is a man who is destined to be born after several generations, and Akiva ben Yosef is his name. This is the famous Rabbi Akiva. Many generations later than Moses, right? Rabbi Akiva saw the destruction of the second temple. So that's like 1,200 years later than Moses. So says God to Moses, there's a man destined to be born after several or many generations, and Akiva ben Yosef is his name, and he is destined to derive from each and every thorn of these crowns what's going on. Just having an internet stop, I hope. Hold on. Yeah, I think, I don't know why the internet slowed down. Okay. I hope it's back up and running. Okay. Okay, so God says to Moses, the reason I'm putting these crowns on the letters of the Torah is because there's this man in 1,200 years, Rabbi Akiva, who's going to derive all kinds of beautiful legal interpretations from them. So Moses said before God, Master of the universe, show him to me. And God said to him, return behind you. Moses went and sat at the end of the 8th row in Rabbi Akiva's study hall. Okay? So Moses was curious. Moses is going to write down the Torah, right? Taking dictation from God and write it down for the Jewish people. And he's told that there's a special letters, right? These crowns on top of the letters. And that Rabbi Akiva will interpret them in incredible, wonderful ways. And that's why God has to tie those crowns onto the letters of the Torah. Moses says, I want to see this Rabbi Akiva. This is incredible. I want to see what he's all about. So God says, okay, go. And God allows him to time travel forward 1,200 years and sit in the classroom where Rabbi Akiva is teaching in the yeshiva, right? And Moses sits down. Moses, the lawgiver, right, who wrote the Torah, is now listening 1,200 years later to Rabbi Akiva teaching the Torah. And Moses did not understand what they were saying. And Moses' strength waned as he thought that his own Torah knowledge was deficient. And when Rabbi Akiva arrived at the discussion of one matter, his students said to him, "My teacher, from where do you derive this?" And Rabbi Akiva said to them, "It is a halacha leMoshe miSinai. It is a law taught to Moses at Mount Sinai." And when Moses heard this, his mind was put at ease, as this too was part of the Torah that he was to receive on behalf of the Jewish people, right? And I mean, I think there's some beautiful storytelling and beautiful humor and so much love. This idea that, well, the sages know that not only the sages, but the prophets and the elders, and, there would be 1,200 years between Moses and Rabbi Akiva of the smartest people in every generation going deep, deep, deep on the Torah to see what it is teaching us, what God is teaching us through the Torah. And they would find many, many, many new insights, beautiful new insights, kosher insights, consistent with the Torah, of course, that Moses perhaps could not have imagined. And so when he went to that class 1,200 years in the future, he's like, what are they talking about? But he was assured that everything that was being taught, it was not some other stuff, it was in the Torah itself. Moses returned, and he came before the Holy One, blessed be he, and said before him, "Master of the universe, you have a man as great as this, as Rabbi Akiva, and yet you still choose to give the Torah through me? Why?" Moses was the humblest man who ever lived, the greatest prophet who ever lived, and the humblest man who ever lived. God said to him, "Be silent. This intention arose before me." I'm not going to explain my reasons to you. God is God. Even to somebody as cherished and beloved as Moses. And no one was ever more cherished or beloved of God than Moses. But he's not going to explain everything to Moses, why he does what he does. Moses said before God, "Master of the universe, you have shown me Rabbi Akiva's Torah. Now show me his reward." God said to him, "Return to where you were." Moses went back and saw that they were weighing Rabbi Akiva's flesh in a butcher shop, as Rabbi Akiva was tortured to death by the Romans for teaching Torah. Moses said before him, "Master of the universe, this is Torah, and this is its reward?" And God said to him, "Be silent. This intention arose before me." Meaning, God does what he wants. God has reasons for everything that he does. I think even if God wished to explain it to us, it might be beyond our understanding. But God doesn't wish us to know, at least not while we're here in this world. It is a mystery. It's meant to be a mystery. Understanding the ways of God is beyond us. What we are meant to understand is that there is a Torah that obligates us and directs us and gives shape to our lives. Jews have 613 commandments. There's a lot for us to do. And all people are obligated in the 7 categories of laws known as the Noahide commandments, the 7 mitzvahs shel b'nei Noach. To understand those and to understand our role in this world takes tremendous study like we're doing here. And we can learn so much and go so much further. And become spiritually so much higher than we were when we started. But will we ever understand all the secrets of the universe? Of course not. We'll understand as much as God allows us to understand, no more. Beyond that, we need to trust God. That's the essence of faith, is to trust God and that he's given us these laws and commanded us and obligated us because he loves us. It's for our good. As I said yesterday, putting the yoke of the commandments on us is to free us to love, know, study, grow in Torah. Next topic, weiter. The Gemara continues its discussion of the crowns on the letters of the Torah. Rava says 7 letters require 3 crowns, and they are the letters Shin, Ayin, Tes, Nun, Zayin, Gimel, and Tzadi. Rav Ashi says, I have seen that the exacting scribes of the study hall of Rav would put a hump-like stroke on the roof of the letter Ches, and they would suspend the left leg of the letter Hey, i.e. they would ensure that it is not joined to the roof of the letter, right? So that's a Hey, and you have to make sure that the leg that is not joined to the roof, that's what makes it a Hey. It's kind of an upside down Yud, and it's very important that that upside down Yud does not touch the roof of the Hey. And then the letter Ches, right? They're talking about this little, elevated, peak in the middle of the roof of the Ches. And that's what they're talking about, that in beautiful Torah scrolls, that's the way the Ches is written. They would put this hump-like stroke on the roof of the letter Ches, as if thereby to say, that the Holy One, blessed be He, lives, Chai, right? The letter Ches is that's why you often see, when a necklace, Jewish people, when they wear a necklace that shows that we're Jews, either it's a Jewish star, the six-pointed star, or it's a Chai, right? Chai is two letters, Ches Yud, which means life, right? Life also has the numerical value 18. That's why Jews always donate in increments of 18. So the letter Ches is the first letter of the word Chai, which means life, right? So the Holy One, blessed be He, lives, Chai, all right? Melech Chai v'kayam, the king lives forever. He lives Chai in the heights of the universe. And they would suspend the left leg of the letter Hey, as Rabbi Yehuda Nesiah asked Rabbi Ami, what is the meaning of that which is written, trust in the Lord forever, for in the Lord, Bet Yah, is God an everlasting, Olamim, rock. Isaiah 26:4. So Rabbi Ami said to him, anyone who puts their trust in the Holy One, blessed be He, will have Him as his refuge in this world and in the world to come. This is alluded to in the word olamim, which can also mean worlds, this world and the next world. Now, obviously, in order for that mystery that requires faith to be preserved, it's not that, everybody who is religious and fulfills all the commandments lives to 120, and everybody who's wicked perishes at a young age. We don't see that. The wicked prosper and the righteous suffer. Sometimes the righteous die prematurely and the wicked live long lives. We can't understand why, but that preserves the mystery that we're talking about. However, somebody who lives a life of faith and trust in God and seeks always to grow in wisdom and attain higher spirituality, is going to live a more meaningful life while they're here, and that's going to be a refuge for them. And we understand, as our sages have taught this, and I've shared it with you many times, it's obviously the Jewish understanding that in the world to come, which is an eternal world, there's an infinite number of levels, and according to the spiritual heights that you rose to in this world, that's where you're going to, start your life in the world to come. Rabbi Yehuda Nesiah said to Rabbi Ami, I was not asking about the literal meaning of the verse. This is what poses a difficulty for me. What is different about that which is written, for in the Lord, Bet Yah, excuse me, and it is not written for the Lord, Yah. Why this prefix in the Lord rather than for the Lord? And Rav Ashi responded, it is as Rabbi Yehuda bar Rabbi Eli taught. The verse for the Lord, Be'yah, is God, an everlasting rock. This is understood as follows. The term everlasting rock, Tur Olamim, Tur is rock, Olamim is everlasting, also means worlds, right? So worlds, that's why we get this idea for all the worlds, for all time. It can also mean creator of worlds. And these letters, Yud and Hey, that constitute the word Yah, which is a name of God, are referring to the two worlds that the Holy One, blessed be He, created. One with Be, the letter He, and one with B, the letter Yud. Right? With is B. The prefix B is with. And I do not know whether the world to come was created with the letter Yud and this world was created with the letter He, or whether this world was created with the letter Yud and the world to come was created with the letter He. When the verse states, these are the generations of the heaven and of the earth when they were created in Genesis 2:4, the creation story, right? So they were created behi vare'am. Do not read it as behi vare'am, meaning when they were created. Rather, read it as behe bera'am, meaning he created them with the letter He. And this verse demonstrates that the heaven and the earth, i.e. this world, when we say the heaven and the earth, we're talking about, the land that we live on and the sky and all the expanse above us, the whole physical universe. He created these with the letter He. Therefore, the world to come must have been created with the letter Yud. And the Yud often stands for God, right? The humble God and his unlimited, really, because God is infinite and yet contracts himself and removes himself from, permeating everything so much that his presence is, inescapable. God withdraws and hides in this world so that we can have that mystery and choose to live a life of faith or not. And that's why so often the letter Yud, the smallest letter, is another representation of Hashem, of God. Now, when the verse states, these are the generations, I'm sorry, I just said that. The letter, so the world to come must have been created with the letter Yud. And for what reason, and I'm almost done. Questions or comments, please get them in now. And for what reason was this world created specifically with the letter He? It is because the letter He, which is open on its bottom, has a similar appearance to a portico, which is open on one side, right? An outdoor porch, covered porch, which is open on one side. And it alludes to this world, where anyone who wishes to leave may leave, i.e. every person that has the ability to choose to do evil. And what is the reason that the left leg of the letter He is suspended, i.e. it is not joined to the roof of the letter? It is because if one repents, if he makes tshuva, he is brought back in through the opening of the top. Let us go back to the letter He. Right? There's the letter He. And so the concept is that our world is created with the letter He. Our world is created as a place where us conscious thinking beings who can choose to do good or evil have that choice. That is why evil exists. It has to exist so that we can have a choice whether to do good or not. In many ways, evil is just the absence of good. Now, what they're saying here is that when you look at that He, the upper letter here, the lower one is also a He, but it's a little bit malformed. When you look at that upper He, the concept is you can choose to stay in God's house or you can leave out the bottom, do whatever you want, follow your pleasures. You have that choice. It will be an empty life that will lead to wickedness and pain. But you can always return to God's house. And the door for that is always open. And that's that smaller opening between the roof of the He and the detached leg, which is that upside down Yud. Okay? So, of course, the question is, why to do evil, you go out the bottom, the big opening, but to return to God, you come through the little opening. Why is that? And for what, and so the Gemara asks, but why not let him enter through that same way that he left? And the Gemara answers, that would not be effective, since one requires assistance from heaven in order to repent, in accordance with the statement of Reish Lakish. As Reish Lakish says, and Reish Lakish was a big Baal Tshuva. Right? A Baal Tshuva means a master of teshuvah, a person who makes teshuvah. Now, we're not None of us are such big masters, but anybody who is not religious and then becomes religious in Judaism is known as a Baal Teshuvah, because it's an incredible accomplishment to be detached from Torah and to make your way back. And you're always going to be finding things you've been doing wrong and make mistakes and trying to do better. And it's a lifetime of effort to try to always get back. And even people who are born religious and are trying to stay religious, there's always a lifetime of effort of learning what you've been doing wrong and how to do better, etc. But the point is that when you want to come to God, you want to come back to God or come to God, heaven will help you do that. As Reish Lakish says, what is the meaning of that which is written? If it concerns the scorners, he scorns them. But to the humble, he gives grace. That's Proverbs 3:34. Concerning one who comes in order to become pure, he is assisted from heaven, as it is written, but to the humble he gives grace. But to the humble he gives grace. It's so beautiful. Concerning one who comes to become impure, he is provided with an opening to do so. And the Gemara asks, and what is the reason that the letter Hey has a crown on its roof, that it has that roof? And the Gemara answers, the Holy One, blessed be He, says, if a sinner returns, repenting for his sin, I tie a crown for him from above. Right, not only the Hey has a roof, but it has that three-pronged crown above it when it's written in the Torah. Right, one who returns to God, returns to Torah, gets assistance from heaven, and when he finds himself back, right, as a person of faith, a person trying to live a life in the commandments, a crown is given to him by the Holy One above, or her. And the Gemara asks, for what reason was the world to come created specifically with the letter Yud, the smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet? And the Gemara answers, it is because the righteous of the world are so few. And for what reason is the left side of the top of the letter Yud bent downward? It is because the righteous who are in the world to come hang their heads in shame, since the actions of one are not similar to those of another. In the world to come, some of the righteous will be shown to be of greater stature than others, right? Even the righteous people, no matter what level you're at, everyone's going to say, I could have done better. I could have done better. In this, I think most of us could say it now. I could do better. I know I could do better. Please, God, help me today and tomorrow to do better, to learn a little more, to make better use of my time. When I pray, to pray with a little more focus, a little more devotion. When I give charity, to give a little bit more. To think, instead of watch TV for the next hour, maybe I have a sick friend. I could call him and give him some comfort. Now, it's just not realistic that we're going to be doing good all the time. We're going to slip. We're going to fall. But please, God, help me do a little better tomorrow than I did today. A little better today than I did yesterday. That's what I've got for us tonight. I'm not seeing any comments or questions. I know there was some technical troubles during the show. I hope that didn't turn too many people away, but I'm not seeing questions now. Okay, that's what I've got for us tonight. And with God's help, reminder, tomorrow, special time, noon Pacific. Sunday, special time, noon Pacific. Have a good night.